Okay, so I had originally started my thesis last semester and had a little bit of delay with getting my employment sorted out and sort of taking a step back and rethinking stuff and figuring out what exactly it was I was trying to do with this, trying to not let my uh, job influence the academic side of things. So the question I'm asking, my topic for my thesis is Microsoft Office 365 a viable cloud-based learning platform? So is it comparable to something like Blackboard or Talent LMS, other platforms that are built specifically for delivering cloud-based learning or e-learning? Um, so what I want to know, what I want to get out of this, I want to know if Office 365 can be used to deliver cloud-based learning programs to a large audience. This audience in this instance is 150,000 plus users, mostly adults, working professionals within New York State government. I want to know if it can afford principles of e-learning, social constructivist learning, and collaborative learning theory, sort of as my basis for evaluating it as a platform for e-learning. And would it be effective in a very diverse, adult-centered learner environment? So what I want to do with this, I want to take a look basically through literature review and doing some further research on social constructivist learning, e-learning, online collaborative learning theories, and use those as a means of establishing criteria for evaluating cloud-based learning platforms. I'm going to use that criteria to examine platforms currently in existence like Blackboard, and use that criteria to examine and establish some common functionality that would be needed to help support things like social constructivist learning. Using that information gathered and those features and that analysis of those platforms to then evaluate Office 365 as a potential platform for delivering e-learning through experimentation and some prototyping. Sort of what I'm drawing on from the IDT program to help me with this. Collectively, I'm drawing from my experience with the program as a student. So as a student in that environment of cloud-based or e-learning. So the experiences that I've had in my interactions with instructors, other students, the variety of classes that I've taken. I'm also planning to draw on some specific classes that I've taken, such as Principles and Projects in New Media with Steve and the prototyping and the feature testing I did there, and looking at different methods of app development and prototyping out a potential application for mobile devices. Things that I experienced in web design, probably going to need a little bit of outside of the box development in SharePoint and Office 365 at some point. That's like future stuff. That's extra things that would be after my initial focus here within the context of this thesis. Things from information design, universal principles of design, affordance, advanced organizer, consistency, and possibly others will factor into this. And also some of the things that I picked up from Felice and digital narratives, using digital media and using that as a means of creating compelling content that will hold your learners and really make them invested in that process. Some of the theories that I'm looking at, primarily affordance theory. I want to make sure that Office 365 can support and afford some of the key concepts of social constructivist learning. I'm also going to draw on e-learning, online collaborative learning, and social constructivist learning theory. Some of the methods that I'm looking at using for this is comparative analysis, observation, but not a typical observation of watching users, but sort of observing what other platforms and what other companies that build out these specific platforms for e-learning use, doing some prototyping and some experimentation with Office 365 along the way. I was hoping that Russ would be my first reader and Steve the second. I'm open to suggestions for that. I know, Russ, you're in charge of this semester and you're already pretty heavily tasked. So if you have suggestions as to who would be a good individual for a first or a second, I'm open to that. And that is what I have.
Okay. My immediate reaction, Ken, is you may be trying to do too much, and this may be why you never got it done the first time.
Yeah, and that's what I'm still worried about now, is that maybe I need to pare this back and remove some of that.
Yeah.
Looking at either social constructivism or
Right.
the analysis stuff of other platforms.
And maybe one use of it, in one particular method of using the cloud. I mean, just tighten all of your areas. They're a little bit generic, and
Okay.
the problem with that is it's sort of an inch deep and a mile wide, and I'd rather you go deeper into one use of it in one environment, and it sort of becomes easier for all of us. But go through one or two more of those slides again. I think this will show up. Okay, leave it right there. Okay. So it can be used to deliver. So yeah, I mean, those questions are just so big that it's just going to make it hard to answer. So think of a particular type of cloud-based learning, perhaps. It's almost like we go back to what we were talking about a little earlier with is it Norm? About graphic design, that you were sort of providing some feedback on that summer class. That's what I like. I like a specific class, something that's as tightly focused as possible, because then you just do it and you're done. I'm not exactly sure what we're going to see here. I mean, it's just going to get pretty broad. Principles. Yeah, I would look at maybe just social constructivist learning. Where did you use that? What class did you use it in?
I didn't get the opportunity to take any of the online learning classes, but a lot of what I've been doing, I taught for SUNY for 3 years, and I do a lot of instruction and curriculum development for New York State now in my position with Information Technology Services. So it's something that I've sort of just, by nature of my profession, had to absorb and integrate and learn about.
And you did take Felice's course, I think you referenced.
Yeah. Yep.
On storytelling or.
Yep. Digital narratives.
Call it these days. Yeah, narratives. Okay. I actually have to give it different names sometimes, because it's a 590, and you can't give the same 590 class twice in a row, so you got to change the title. You really should eventually give it its own class. By the way, you see that last line where it's got that word with an A in it? Can you say that 3 times fast? And no, I'm just kidding. It's that's one of those terms that always interested me. It's something that has a lot to do with our types of students, older students and more motivated students. That's an interesting thing, and I might really, really focus on that. What does that mean? You'll see there's lots of literature about andragogy. That one I can pronounce. But this idea that older learners have different sort of motivations and needs and interests, that can be a good section. What does that really mean? And that's pretty tight, so I like that. It's a specific group.
Okay.
Just as I would focus on a specific area of learning, because it's a little different to learn biology, or whatever, than it is to learn, something in sociology. So think about an area of e-learning, even if you're getting away from that and talking more about social constructivists. So everything, tighter. But I like the andragogy. That's sort of the older learner, and the
Yeah. And
sense.
that's the primary audience that I've been working with for the past years. There are a lot of working professionals who have been out of school for, several years, just looking to expand upon their skill set to do their job more efficiently.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why with Catherine, she's dealing with undergrads, and that's sort of a different group. They tend to be more behavioral. They just want to get their grades and move on, a little bit more, a lot more actually. But, older students usually are much more motivated by learning things. They don't want to waste their time, and they don't
Yeah.
want to be, you know, they want to really understand something more. So they're
Mm.
more driven by that. So, and you'll see that if you do a little research on andragogy. So I would, that's sort of the idea. Go to another slide. What I want to know. Okay. What I want to do. Okay. Research. Yeah. A lot of these I sort of use information to evaluate. So, what I'd like you to be is tighter on all these. What does that mean? Research,
Okay.
learning. You got a specific set of classes you want to look at. Maybe some MOOCs that interest you, but keep it focused in
Yeah.
one particular area. Like,
Okay.
actually MOOCs are tough, I find, because they're usually not in areas that interest me that much. Like communication theory and stuff.
Yeah.
It's about math or
Yeah. And
computer science or, and so this is actually good in the sense that you want to see what's useful in areas that interest these older learners and people who aren't, studying computer science.
mm,
So what does that mean? Who are you studying? What are your outcomes? What do you want to see people learn? And I'd be very specific about that. So you
okay.
may want to look around at MOOCs and see if you can find a few that's the sort of thing that's an example of e-learning that interests me. So and that they would need for the group of people, learners you're dealing with.
Okay.
I would look at that, but yeah, everything should be tighter, and then everything else will flow from that. So if you've got some specific courses you're thinking of, and learning outcomes, and age group, audience, so tighten all of those, and then suddenly you've got a thesis, because
Okay.
you can talk about each one of those. And it becomes much more doable. You may expand further once you've got it. This is just for the thesis, not, just you can do whatever you want
Yeah.
beyond that. But oftentimes you'll find that this gives you enough, and then it becomes easy to expand out, because you've got one nailed, and the others will sort of flow from that.
Yeah.
So I would let's go to your next slide for a second, if you could. Okay, yeah. So you see prototyping. Okay, so you did. Who did you take 553 with?
I took that with Steve. That was last summer, I believe.
Okay, and then you go web design. Who did you take that with? Was that Anna?
I took that with Doug.
Doug. Okay.
Doug Cohn. Yep.
Sure. And then digital narratives. Okay. So you may want to talk to Steve about this too. He's always a good person to bounce idea. Well, he's probably the person you took the class with last semester. Is that?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. But I'm going to ask you to tighten all these and then send it to me. What you're thinking. And sort of take your time on it a little bit, but you read your 1 to 2 pager, think of a specific theory, a specific class, a specific audience, and come up with learning outcomes. What are they going to get out of this? I
Mm.
think it'll help you on that. What's your product on this? Is there a product, or is it just a research?
There is some product to it. I was planning to actually, once I sort of established some of the functionality and some of the features that I would need to help facilitate constructivist learning as an environment, actually go into Office 365 and start to establish some of the features that are there that can help support that and afford that type of a learning theory within
Oh,
Office
okay.
365.
So that almost gets to everything else I was saying, because you'd have to create it for something that would be at least theoretically useful.
Yeah, a specific class of some kind.
Right. So
Yeah.
I would start there, maybe
Okay.
create sort of a mock-up, and it's almost like I was talking about with Dave. I mean, once you come up with a prototype or a pilot, some sort of
Yep.
idea, then everything else can flow from there, because we sort of see what you're after. It's also easier in terms of IRB stuff. I don't see that problem here, but it sort of exposes what you have to do. Like when you're talking about observation, then I realize you're just talking about different platforms.
Yeah.
But it's important to really think of what you're going to do, and then we can move from there. So just spend a day just designing a mock-up of what you'd see as
Yeah.
a good experience for a user,
Okay.
and using andragogy also. So you may want to do your research on that first, because that really shows what people
Yeah. Yep.
motivates the older learner, which is could be very different from an undergraduate who has different sort of. They're a little more driven by getting that piece of paper. Older learners are more into getting it.
Yeah. There's not that like overreaching like long-term incentive of I've got to sort of go through this program that's going to take several years to get a degree to then go get a good job. With the adult learners, it's more that they're in need of specific knowledge, specific skills, and they come to this training, to this class, to get that, because that's what they need, that's what they want right then and there. And the bigger picture for them is less important as it would be for someone in an undergraduate or a graduate program.
Right. There's just different driving
Yeah.
forces there. It's a little more sort of building skills and understandings. Okay, so yeah, that's what I would basically focus on. Just tightening
Okay.
it up and clarifying. Not, I see a lot of sort of generic ideas here, which is a start, but I want to see more
Focus
specific
it down. Yeah.
ideas. Yeah, and then and sort of start with a specific, and then pull out. Oh, what I've gotten, this has to do with e-learning or social constructivism, whatever. You sort of start seeing that as a way to drive it to its next level. So you start simple with just an idea, and then you move from there. Okay, I think we're all set. I think I appreciate. Anyone else have anything they wanted to add, or I think we're okay for now. And so I'll let everyone go. I appreciate